Welcome everybody to yet another episode of Pop Swap, which I guess is technically a little bit of a holiday special in a way because
Easter Sunday special.
Today, yes, Easter Sunday. Everyone's chomping away on lots of chocolate eggs right now.
I feel like we should have watched some Easter content, like maybe, I don't know, the Passion of the Christ or something.
Yeah, I was trying to think of Easter themed. I wonder where you're going to go with that. I thought, is there any animated cartoons? There's probably a few.
Who Framed Roger
Easter
Rabbit?
Bunny. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Yeah, that's a good one. Harvey.
Harvey.
Stewart.
Yeah,
there you go.
great movie.
Rabbit related. We're just going to talk about rabbit related films today.
Yeah, I didn't watch anything Easter related. We're just recording it on an Easter Sunday, so
yeah. And by the time you're all listening to that, it won't really matter. It'll probably be 2 months later. Ben-Hur was always a film that was on an Easter Sunday when I was a kid. Really?
Yeah, you spent 4 hours watching that on an Easter Sunday.
Yeah. A lot of the matinees, classic matinees.
The Swords and Sandals classics. Yeah.
Yeah. My nan used to watch a fair few of those as well.
Yeah. I'm Spartacus. Not the same movie, but of that ilk. Cut from the same cloth. Anyway, I think
less Easter, more nerdy stuff.
Yeah. We don't have much of a plan today, but let's just chat about what we watched or did this week, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we are yet again, we're not quite getting into Halt and Catch Fire territory. We're almost there.
Almost there.
Maybe a week to go.
I have a few episodes left. I am now on the last season. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, next weekend will be definitive, like, what's the word I'm looking for? D-Day. It'll be HCF Day.
Yeah, so we'll round that up next week for you. And yes, just general nerdy chat for this week. So let's get into our nerdy chat, shall we? What have you been up to nerdy chat-wise this week?
Well, Dean, I watched a film on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to get that out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a film called I Care a Lot.
Okay.
And to sum up my thoughts, I cared somewhat about the first 40 minutes of the movie. Mm-hmm. I cared less about the second 40 minutes of the movie. And then I cared very little for the end of the movie.
Okay.
And that's all I have to say about that. So I Care a Lot is a film with Rosamund Pike. And the man who plays Tyrion, whose name Peter Dinklage. Sorry about that. So Peter Dinklage played... first, Rosamund Pike, the main character, plays a woman who is essentially a court-appointed carer for the elderly, basically. Mm-hmm. And she is also a con woman. She's a con artist. Okay. So intriguing premise. She basically has elderly people who may or may not have like assets, shall we say, and riches, has them declared incompetent or whatever the turn of phrase is, by a doctor who she has in her pocket, basically. And she starts stealing from them. So she sends them into a home, she gets them all set up, and then she takes control of the old people's assets and just fleeces them.
Okay.
And it was a very, very entertaining first 40 minutes because it felt original. It felt a little bit like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels or Ocean's 11. It had that kind of cool, dynamic vibe. But it kind of descended into, shall we say, stupid territory. So I think the writing was not up to the standard of the intelligence that they wanted the characters to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the writing wasn't as smart as the characters were intended to be. So basically what happens is she has a woman declared kind of incompetent. She has her put into a home. But this woman turns out to be the mother of a mob boss. And the mob boss is played by Peter Dinklage, who is fantastic in the movie.
Okay.
He's incredibly entertaining as this mob boss. But there's a weird inconsistency of tone because at the beginning, it's quite comedic and it's dealing with the subject matter in quite a playful way. But then it does take a turn into, oh no, he's a serious Russian mafia boss. And it does not fit the first half of the film for me. So that's one of the main issues I had. But after, everyone started making stupid decisions. So Rosamund Pike's character got way too overly confident with what she was doing, even though she's now knee deep in Russian mafia territory, and they were playing her off as if she was the smartest person in every room, yet she was being so dumb. And like, you're gonna get killed. This is the Russian mafia. Like, what do you like? Please don't be so cocky, you know. But whenever she would like make a blundering error that was completely out of character, seemingly, Peter Dinklage's character, the mob boss, made an equally stupid, ununderstandable, whatever the word is, incomprehensible decision. So, I don't know, it left me a bit frustrated, and by the end I cared very little, and it got very predictable, which I hate. I hate when something gets too predictable, especially when it feels unique at the start. If you tease me with something unique and then make it predictable, it angers me even more. So that's what I watched. I would say give it a watch and see what you make of it yourself. But sometimes watching at least 40 minutes of a good movie is enough to outweigh 40 minutes of a meh movie at the end, you know? So I think if I watched it and I was in a different mood or a different kind of, shall we say, a different approach or mindset, expectations wise, I might enjoy it. I might enjoy it for what it is, but yeah. So, inconsistency of tone, characters making baffling decisions, and writing that just wasn't as smart as it was played off to be, basically.
Do you think they were trying to attempt that kind of balance of, from what you've described to me there, that I'm just making the association because of Peter Dinklage really, but the like In Bruges kind of,
Absolutely.
Think they're wanting to aim for that sort of like dark comedic kind of, but still dramatic, still crime.
Yeah. They were trying to strike that balance of the McDonagh films that are, or like Guy Ritchie, you know, those crime dramas, but it's got a bit of an attitude, a bit of a self-aware playfulness kind of thing. But yeah, I just, it wasn't there for me. It didn't hit that mark. But I did actually, that reminds me, I did watch The Gentleman recently enough.
Okay, yeah.
What did you think of The Gentleman?
I've not seen it because this would be an interesting chat because I am not ashamed to say I loathe Guy Ritchie movies.
Okay.
Yeah. Fun. I've never been a fan at all of his work.
You loathe his films. Such a strong word.
It's a strong word, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty harsh. I guess I'm a bit biased because like when I was kind of growing up and British cinema was starting to boom a bit in the kind of like mid to late 90s, I guess, when it was kind of having a bit of a resurgence of like interesting directors coming along. At the time, I felt it was quite unfair, to me anyway, that he was getting a lot of attention for Lock, Stock, and to me, in comparison to somebody like Shane Meadows, who was also kind of launching his career at the time with 24/7, I think it was. I just thought like he was just like in comparison to the other, like the wrong person got all the attention and had an incredible career. I don't know. To me, there's like I don't buy the credibility of Guy Ritchie's background sort of constituting the work that he makes. Like I think he lives up to this fantasy of this kind of plastic working class hero kind of persona of like, but he's completely not from that background, has no understanding of that world really, other than I guess the world that he would have grown up seeing on like through movies and things like that himself, which is fine, you know, like you don't have to be from a background to do a good job of turning that into a fictional world. But I don't know, they always just played for me a little bit too much like they were too much like extended music videos than kind of groundbreaking dynamic works of cinema, you know, from somebody who's really experimenting with the form. It was always a bit too style over substance for me with his work. But I understand he's got a massive following and people I had a lot of friends at college at the time who absolutely love Lock, Stock to bits. And I can kind of understand why, because it is a fun watch, but it just never really settled with me as much as other people. It wasn't like a cult favourite of mine. But I don't know. What's The Gentleman about anyway? Sorry.
The Gentleman is kind of it's a funny one. It's I don't know how to explain it. It's Matthew McConaughey plays an American weed dealer who's in London, who wants to get rid of sell off his empire and sail into the sunset, basically. And he's basically controls the major, like the biggest weed dealing organization in Britain. And once he basically announces that he's going to sell off his fortune or sell off whatever it is that he owns, the sharks come out to play, essentially. That's the film. But it's done in a way where Hugh Grant's character plays a kind of leechy, sneaky private investigator, and he's brilliant in it. I love Hugh Grant in the film. He's doing a Ray Winston, or not Ray Winston, he's doing a Ben Kingsley in Sexy Beast kind of thing.
Yeah.
A bit of that vibe, like Ray Fiennes in Bruges, a very similar kind of... Yeah, that...
Cast the posh guy as the hard guy.
Yeah,
I think
and I like
gist.
that. I like that contradiction because I've never seen Hugh Grant be this seedy, horrible person. And I just enjoyed that. And he was very good in it. And you could tell everybody was having a lot of fun. It's super well written. It's really, really well written. It's well put together. Hugh Grant's character is writing a film script about the story of the film, and it's kind of told in that way, and I like it. Sometimes those things can be a bit gimmicky, but I like the way it's narrated. I like the tone of it. I like the vibe. I like the dynamic kind of attitude, you know. And Matthew McConaughey is really good in it. He's playing Matthew McConaughey, basically. Charlie Hunnam is also in it, and is the best I've ever seen Charlie Hunnam, because I'm not the biggest fan of Charlie Hunnam, but I think he's quite good in it. And Colin Farrell is exceptional. Colin Farrell is exceptional in almost everything that he does.
Yes, that's true.
He plays a boxing coach from North Dublin who's working in London, bringing up kind of street kids, working class kids as boxers, and he's got a little crew for himself. He is exceptionally hilarious in it. And there's a lot of, offensive humor and, could possibly, potentially be perceived as racist, homophobic, chauvinistic, all of the isms that you can think of. But it very much owns its sense of humor. And I enjoy it. It doesn't do it gratuitously just to piss people off. I think it's all of the characters kind of just are all shitty people, but you are kind of fascinated by them all. So yeah, I enjoyed The Gentleman. That was a random one. I just remembered watching that. So that was better than I Care a Lot. I probably should have just rewatched The Gentleman. When I was 40 minutes into I Care a Lot, I should have just turned it off and rewatched The Gentleman. But yeah, I would say out of the two, watch The Gentleman. They're both on Amazon Prime. So yeah, Dino, that's I think that's the Amazon Prime content out of the way. Unless, of course, you watch something.
No. Well, not on Amazon. No, we got that out of the way early this time.
Let's get that out
so we can move on with our lives.
Yeah.
What was I checking out? Let me think. Bit of a quiet week for me in general. I've not had time to check out much, to be honest with you. But my selection, oddly enough, I kind of ended up getting into checking this out in a similar way to when I spoke to you recently enough about Servant.
Yeah.
And a very similar case to that of me going on the internet and looking stuff up and reading quite glowing reviews of the second season of a TV series I'd never even heard of.
Okay.
And thought to myself, I think I'll go back and check out the first season of this. And very similar in that respect to Servant as well. This is also a TV series that was on Apple TV. And it also had its first season in 2019 and has had its second season this year. So I started to check out a show called For All Mankind, which is created by Ronald D. Moore, who's probably best known for resurrecting Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, yeah.
And bringing that back to TV screens and doing a fantastic job of that. I think he might have done a bit of stuff on Star Trek series prior to that as well. I'm not 100%. I'm not much of a Trekkie, so I don't know much about that. But yeah, the basic gist is it tells the story of, I guess, an alternative history of what may have happened with the space race if it didn't end. So,
cool. I like what ifs.
Yeah, what ifs. It's a good what if show.
Cool.
So we kind of like open with an astronaut landing on the moon, and we have the have guy in the news speaking to the population. Everybody's very excited, and we're expecting the astronauts to suddenly come down, and you think you know where it's going, and then all of a sudden he starts speaking, and he's speaking in Russian, and we realise that the Russians have beaten the Americans to the first man on the moon.
Oh, fantastic. I like where this is going already.
Yeah, so it kind of like spirals from there, really, and it just tells the story. Like you've got real world figures in there as well. So you've got your kind of full list of people throughout history. You've still got like Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong and John Glenn, and all those characters are still in it. You have actors briefly playing them more in sort of cameo roles than them being the main cast and the main characters. But then you have this crew of this kind of fictional group of characters who are all taking part in these new Apollo missions that are based on the idea, like I say, that the Russians are winning the space race. And because things don't go to plan as they did in history, then it just leads to a sort of really interesting chain of events. So, for example, the Russians also get the first woman on the moon, and that kind of triggers the Americans to try and assemble their own team of female astronauts and get the first American woman on the moon.
Cool.
And yeah, it kind of goes from there in some really interesting ways. I've no idea where it's leading to, but I get a sense that we're kind of heading into kind of like Cold War in space kind of territory as it progresses. I think that's where it might go as a show. I've deliberately not read up too much about it other than that it was just like a case of me thinking, oh, that sounds like an interesting concept, I'll check that out. And then I didn't bother delving in too much into kind of too many critical opinions and stuff before I checked it out.
Yeah, something with an intriguing premise like that, I never like reading up too much about it. Like you're reminding me, we just finished recently in the last couple of weeks, The Man in the High Castle, and I'm glad I stayed away from looking up stuff about it, because the direction the show went was mind blowing.
Cool.
And
I would actually say it would touch bases with that a little bit. I was thinking of any sort of reference points, then I guess kind of I was thinking a little bit Apollo 13 and First Man and stuff like that, but then also a show like Man in the High Castle and stuff, in the sense of like it is, and Fatherland, that film, the Rutger Hauer movie where the Nazis win the war and stuff. But just that concept of, and because it's so grounded in the original history, and it just kind of like very subtly like just teases you a little bit into kind of just making tiny little changes here and there. I don't know, it's much more interesting than just like a really big, grand reimagining of the future, because you can kind of relate and stuff feels believable when you're watching certain scenes play out, but where it's heading is entirely unpredictable. And because you're watching the Americans fail the space race so much, then when they go to actually perform some of the missions during the episodes and stuff, you're really on edge because you've got no idea if anyone's going to survive this mission, if anything's going to go well. You're really not sure what's going to happen, and it makes you kind of like care quite a lot about what's going to happen to the cast and crew.
What is the show called again?
For All Mankind.
For All Mankind. Cool.
Yeah, the cast are really good as well. There's a few familiar faces that people might know of. You've got Joel Kinnaman.
Oh yes.
The RoboCop remake.
Yep.
Killing and Altered Carbon as well. And then you have, what's her name? Chantel Vanserton. I think I probably mispronounced her name, but she's from The Boys. She's Butcher's wife.
Butcher's wife, yeah.
Yeah. In that. And then you've also got Sonia, again, I'm going to mispronounce surnames here, but Sonia Welger, who's Penny from Lost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She's great in it.
I love
really
you,
good.
Penny.
I love you, Penny. Yeah. She plays one of the female astronauts. So and Chris Bauer as well, who's like a bit of a David Simon regular. He's been in The Wire and The Juice, and he's always brilliant. He's a fantastic actor.
Right.
He's really great in it as well. But yeah, I'm binged 5 hours worth of television last night.
Yeah, cool.
Because each episode is a good full hour in length as well, so you get that sense. But it's a slow burn. I've got to admit, you need to give it an episode or two to settle in, and once you start to get familiar with the cast and the characters, you're completely hooked at that stage. At least I was.
That is the exact same experience I had with The Man in the High Castle. An episode or two to kind of get going, familiarize yourself with the premise.
Yeah.
And then it's relentless until the very end.
Yeah. Yes, definitely on my list to watch that one as well. But yeah, I'm really excited about seeing where it goes from there. Like I say, I'm halfway through. I think it's 10 episodes in length, and I've done 5 so far. And especially knowing that the second season appears to be getting much more favourable reviews than the first. And
cool.
I have no issues so far with the first. I'm really enjoying it. So
yeah, I keep making comparisons to The Man in the High Castle, but the second season is the worst reviewed season. We went to look at it, like retrospectively, look up online, and the second season was the worst reviewed season. It had like 50 on Metacritic and 65 Rotten Tomatoes. So clearly it was a bit polarizing, and we thought it was amazing. And sometimes you'll find shows like that, maybe 50% of critics enjoyed and 50% were like, nah. And I just think are incredible.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Like, I'm trying to think like why. I mean, maybe it's just because I live in my own little bubble, my cocoon of a life sometimes.
I think sometimes it can be a taste thing.
Yeah, you think that maybe something doesn't resonate or hit the zeitgeist a bit because of it's just not for the moment or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because had you heard of that show before I mentioned it? Because that's the thing, like 2019, I'd never heard of that show at all. Like,
I actually haven't, but it's shot right up my to-watch list now. I need to track that down.
Yeah. I find it odd how like these little things are sort of sneaking by. And again, an Apple TV kind of affair. Maybe it's just that I didn't find myself going on Apple TV too much until, I guess now we're in lockdown, we start checking out a lot of the other services we might not have checked out.
Gonna have to try another streaming service now, I guess.
Yeah. See what else is on there.
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, I'll keep reporting back to you all on that, see how it goes. I imagine I'll have the first season finished before the end of this week.
Very cool.
I'd been planning. Definitely going to. Sorry,
I had been planning. Sorry to cut across it. I'd been planning to start The Expanse since you were talking about it recently.
Definitely, yeah.
So that's next on my list, I think.
Yeah, if our friend is listening, if you're out there listening to us right now, who recommended The Expanse to me, I 100% think he should also check out For All Mankind, because I think it's totally going to be up his street as well.
Oh, it definitely sounds like something he'd be into. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get him on the show as well when we all watch these things. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I don't know, like I say, it's been a quiet week, so I haven't had time to fit in much more.
Yeah.
I know that there has since then also been another episode of Invincible that would have aired. I've not checked it out, but I did start to delve into the comics, and I found myself getting up to about maybe issue 18 at this stage. I think I'm at right now.
Yeah, cool.
And very much enjoying that too.
I am on issue 30-something now. And I find it slow, weirdly, even though it's, it keeps you turning the page. It's just events feel to be moving a little bit slow, and it's kind of standard superhero tropes, and every once in a while you'll get a gradual flip of a coin or a difference that keeps you going. So I'll keep you updated on that as well. If we both keep reading it, that'll be a cool little thing we can do now in the coming weeks, especially with the TV show as well.
Yeah, we can try and get that finished as well.
So, other than Invincible, I picked up the first 2 books of a new series that I discovered recently enough. sorry, the first book was a Christmas present, actually. And I picked up the second book because I blasted through the first one. And it is called Sex Criminals, which is an excellent title for a comic book series.
Certainly catch your attention.
Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't mention at the beginning, it's a comic book series. It is written by Matt Fraction, who is famous for his unique take on Hawkeye for Marvel when he was still working for Marvel. And that will be what the upcoming Disney Plus show will be based on. Will be based on Matt Fraction's run on Hawkeye, where it is everything that he is doing when he's not an Avenger, and it's brilliant. He's got himself a little dog, a little pizza dog, and has himself a sidekick, a new young girl who he trains up, and basically he's dealing with all of the problems in his apartment block and all of the problems that his neighbours have with landlords, Russian mafia, all this crazy stuff, and it's quite a fun tone. And he matches that tone in Sex Criminals, which is a hilarious book with tons of heart as well. It's his own creator-owned stuff. So it's published through Image Comics, which is a publisher dedicated to creator-owned material rather than the work-for-hire comics, you know. And it is essentially just about a couple who discover that when they orgasm, time stops.
Okay, I did not see it going this way.
Yeah. So naturally, we're introduced to these two kind of characters who they've had these powers, shall we say, since they were kids, and they thought they were the only ones. And they meet each other at a party. They do the business, and they realize, oh, you're in this world with me now too. And they realize they both have the power, and it's really sweet. It's really charming. It's full of dick jokes and full of like the most immature humor, but it's done in such a playful way that you can't help but smile through every single bit of dialogue. It's brilliant. So essentially, to explain the title, discovering that they both have this power, they naturally decide to rob banks. So they have sex close to a bank, and they decide, okay, the entire world just freezes. It just freezes. And she calls it the quiet. So that's what we call the world when everything freezes. And he calls it cum world. So she is a librarian. She has her own library. And kind of the thing that gets the plot moving is that her library is going to be shut down. Nobody goes to the library anymore. She needs to pay off her mortgage to keep the library open, all this kind of stuff. And he is a disgruntled bank employee who hates working for his corporate overlord, banking overlord people. And yeah, so they decide to rob the bank that he works for to save her library. That's the plot. But we then realize, slowly that we meet the sex police, who are people who also have that power, but who kind of, stop crime that happens in cum world. It's such a ridiculous thing. I can't believe, when I say this out loud, it sounds so ridiculous, but it's such a fun read. It's one of the most fun books I think I've ever read in any medium, like comics or novels. But the thing that I really love about it is it's got this honesty to it. So the characters really speak about a lot of taboo things that, we would all shamefully kind of maybe, we'll think that in our mind, but we won't really talk about that with our significant other or in a relationship or anything like that. But these two have this relationship, and they're exploring things together, and then they discuss things together that it really makes you think about relationships in general and how people discuss these things in the real world. And what if we openly discussed sex without all the shame and quietness and taboo thing that goes with it? And it's really fascinating. It's actually really, really good, and it's really sweet. the two have a really genuine relationship, the two characters, and it goes hand in hand with Chip Zdarsky's art. So I can tell that both guys are really in sync with the story they want to tell. And there's a lot of breaking the fourth wall. There's a lot of meta humor where they stop for a moment because they don't know how to write this scene, and then you step out of the comic and you see Chip Zdarsky himself trying to draw the scene, and Matt Fraction thinking, how was I supposed to write this scene? And then you just get a scene of them two discussing the scene rather than seeing the scene, if that makes sense. I don't know, but it's just the fun that they clearly had making this series. It leaps off the page, so I loved it. I really, really loved it. And the first book was a Christmas present that my girlfriend got me, and I read it last week, and then I immediately bought the second book. And the third and final book, it ends with issue 30, which they have renamed issue 69. The third book, I think, is coming out in July. So I'm going to wait for the book. I'm not going to read the rest of it online. I'm just going to wait for the book in July and finish it then. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's amazing. I couldn't recommend it highly enough. You'll have a great time with it. Also, I read both books in about half an hour to an hour, you know. It's brilliant. It's really, really good. There's not much else I can say about it. So yeah, that's what I did this week. I read fucking Sex Criminals. One thing actually about it is, so Chip Zdarsky is currently writing Daredevil, which I think is the best stuff that kind of Marvel consistently puts out. Great Daredevil stuff. He's currently writing Daredevil, and that ongoing series is amazing, and it's very close in tone and in plot to the show. So any fans of the Daredevil TV show should check out Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil. And it's wild that this is the same guy that's doing Sex Criminals and used to write Howard the Duck, and it's because it's so dark. His Daredevil is really, really dark, and it's about faith and, you know, God and the devil and all this kind of weird gothic horror type stuff, and based on the gritty underworld streets of New York, and it's essentially what Daredevil should be. Mm-hmm. And then I'm reading this Sex Criminals book, and it's hilarious fun. It's self-deprecating humor at its finest, and I love it. It's perfect. It's right up my street. So yeah.
Well, that sounds cool. I like the sound of Sex Criminals. I'll definitely have to add that to my reading list as soon as I've finished off Invincible and my Robert Kirkman kind of fest at the moment, because I'm still going through Outcast as well.
Yeah, so yeah, I had momentarily forgotten about Outcast. All right.
Yeah, that's cool. That's still on my list. So I'm still working my way through both of those at the moment.
Cool.
But yeah. So next week, hopefully we can get chatting away about the overdue Halt and Catch Fire.
Yep.
I remind myself never to recommend you check out a 4-season TV series prior to moving apartments. I won't make that mistake again.
We're all fully settled now. It's still locked down, so now, you know, if it's readily available as well on a streaming platform,
that would have helped.
My downloads of Halt and Catch Fire didn't work either, so I am still streaming it on. Yeah. So it's not optimal, but I'm enjoying it far more now than I was at the beginning. So I'll update you next week when I finish it. I have about 7 episodes left.
Good stuff. Thanks everybody for listening again. Hope you're enjoying shoving all that chocolate in your faces on this day.
Yep. Hope everyone has a lazy day.
Indeed. Like, subscribe, follow.
Do your homework.
All the things. Share the wealth with the 15 other listeners.
Share it. Change the world. Do all the stuff we need to do. Follow on Spotify's Red Circle, Red Bubble, Red Circle. That
Red Circle. Yeah, nice reviews. Thanks again, and we'll catch you all next week. Goodbye.
See you next week.